This after, of course, protesters that were engaged in running battles with the police. There was widespread looting of businesses and unrest. And really the calls continue for the Premier to be removed as he continues to be embroiled in a number of scandals, as you heard from Similwane there, linking him to the controversial Gupta family and indeed the former President Zuma, allegations surfacing at the weekend. But he does remain in office, and the President said he is consulting widely within the governing party. It raises the question of what needs to happen to remove a Premier. All right, it does seem we don't have that package, but we'll speak now to political analyst from the Northwest to try and get a sense of that situation. Theo joins us now on the line. Good evening to you, and thank you for your time. The question of removing a Premier, Theo, isn't as simple as people would like to make it. The specific requirements, according to Section 130 of the Constitution, aren't there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If you want to follow the constitutional route, it is not easy, and your reasons must be good. And there are several things, because if you remove a Premier according to the Constitution, there is the possibility that he may lose a lot of the benefits that he has accrued and all of those kind of things. It's almost like a penalty if you remove him via that channel. But there are other ways of getting premiers out. We've seen this quite often. And I don't think that I've witnessed a single case where the constitutional route has actually been followed. Usually, they follow the political route.
Let's just talk through those specifics. What are the grounds that Section 130 of the Constitution demands for the Premier to be removed?
Well, we've heard some of these reasons already being preempted by Supra Mahumapelo. In other words, there is no court case that found him guilty of anything. That's one ground. That's corruption. Or derelict of duty, not doing his work, or any of those kind of formal things that can bring an end to your term. Very similar to that is applied to the President or any other executive position in government. So it forms a very strict, let's call it a court ruling on matters of not doing his work.
Prof, he remains deeply unpopular in the province. We've had a number of allegations surfacing over quite a period of time. New ones at the weekend of impropriety links to the former president.
Yes, that is the case. Now, we must remember, if we say he's very unpopular, those are the voices that we hear, but there are definitely other voices in the province as well that has been part of his system of patronage, especially in local governments and all over the province, that may hold a different opinion on Mahumapelo. He has been, ever since his rise to the level of Premier, he has developed a very, very intricate network of interests, of support, and these kind of things. And that's why his premiership has been so marked, so many issues. And, of course, he has been very outspoken about certain projects that he wants to do. He had a sentence, a logo kind of going, Saamwerk, Saamtrek, and he had this rebranding, renewal kind of stuff that he was speaking all the time. But you see what has happened. There are several victims on the road to his success. People that has been ousted from the party, people that has been taken to court for several things, people that has been dropped out of certain positions. So I think when Ramaphosa took the stand or took power in December, that actually introduced the end of several politicians, of which Supra Mahumapelo would have been one, because his shelf life immediately had a date, and the date was May of 2019. Now, whenever a politician has got an end date, in other words, end of term, which, of course, he would not be reappointed because he wasn't in the Ramaphosa side of things, then you see the opening of the sluices, like Supra is currently experiencing.
So I imagine then politically, the president has quite a tight rope to walk on this until it gets to a final resolution. We saw, as I said in my introduction, he cut short his trip to the UK to come and deal with this. But a number of people have been disappointed that, as what they would perceive, no decisive action seems to have been taken.
Well, I differ from that. I would give the president full marks on his return, because he demonstrated three things. He demonstrated, firstly, that he can prioritize what is important and what is not. He had good people in the UK to continue the work, but Northwest was on fire. In other words, it's a priority. Secondly, I think he understood how to resolve issues in the party needs his personal attention. And I think the third thing, and probably the most important strategic consideration, was this can allow him to consolidate his power in the ANC. Because if Supra goes, whether it's today or tomorrow or in a week's time or in 2 weeks' time, that means of the original Premier League, of which you've spoken just before, there's only Ace Magashule remaining. And it feels very, very alone when you're the only guy representing a previous group. So I think there's a lot of strategic moves, and therefore I think we are witnessing the long game here. We're not witnessing a short game. In other words, rather take more time, discuss more with more interest groups and discuss with more people, and then you call an NEC meeting. And the NEC will then take, in my view, a very interesting line, and that is not to take Supra on corruption or any of the claims of lack of service delivery or any of those things, but rather taking on the non-preparedness of the ANC in the Northwest for next year's election. Because there are several worries about branches and regions not being elected. In other words, the province is not in a state of readiness for next year, and that can be detrimental to his position.
And of course, the president won't be seen to have done it on his own. He won't have wielded the axe that will finally chop the tree. Professor Theo there, a constitutional expert and political analyst attached to the Northwest University in Potchefstroom. Stay with us. We do have more news after this quick break.